murmured threats, and narrowed gaze. The man who popularized the phrase "go ahead, make my day" doesn't put up with idiots, whether they are on or off screen. Clint Eastwood has dominated Hollywood for 60 years with a firm hand concealed behind a kind manner. Even Dirty Harry would be impressed by the number of grudges that lie behind the renowned Cool Burns. Eastwood's secret blacklist has been made public by recently discovered insider accounts. After 5 performers wasted his valuable time and committed the greatest sin in his world, the renowned director vowed never to collaborate with them again. The man who was renowned for his efficiency and ability to whisper quietly on movie sets had a particular disdain for these celebrities. And his explanations will alter your perception of some of the biggest stars in Hollywood for all time. The 5 actors that pushed the most successful filmmaker in film past his breaking point are listed today, along with the reasons why crossing Clint Eastwood meant being banished from his world forever. A straightforward idea served as the foundation for Eastwood's empire, which included Dirty Harry, Unforgiven, $1 Million Baby, and American Sniper. Be prepared, be truthful, and have faith in the initial attempt. His sets run smoothly and consistently. Not a second chance, no drama. According to a long-standing assistant director, Clint doesn't care when someone disobeys his guidelines. He simply never gives them another call. Which 5 performers, then, were given permanent places on Eastwood's infamous blacklist? Let's explore the Hollywood icons who discovered the hard way that efficiency is not just desired but necessary in Clint's world. 5. Burton, Richard. One name that may surprise fans of classic films is number 5 on Eastwood's list. Burton, Richard. Eastwood co-starred with the well-known Welsh actor in the 1968 action movie Where Eagles Dare, which was set during World War II. Despite the fact that Behind the Cameras was a commercial success and eventually a cable TV mainstay, Eastwood would always dislike working with Burton as a result of the experience. Those who witnessed the filming claim that the fight sprang from their completely different perspectives on professionalism and acting. Even back then, Eastwood was renowned for his forethought, timeliness, and penchant for short takes. Burton, on the other hand, brought a completely different vibe to the set while he was going through a difficult time with Elizabeth Taylor. Richard, a camera operator who worked on the movie, would arrive late, frequently hungover, and occasionally still intoxicated from the previous night. Clint would have been there, ready to go, since the break of day. He would simply watch while Burton stammered over lines that he had obviously not gone over. As it developed, you could see it in real time. In a crucial scene where Burton gives a protracted explanation of the mission's actual goal, the suspense increased. Several reports claim that Burton needed more than 20 takes, which ran counter to Eastwood's one-and-done attitude. According to a production assistant, Clint simply watched from a distance after the 10th take. For the most part, he was not angry. He simply watched as Burton struggled with lines that Clint had committed to memory flawlessly prior to breakfast. "I'm getting paid by the picture, not by the hour," was his response when someone asked him if he was upset, although it was obvious that he was furious. In addition to his lack of preparation, Burton's lack of regard for the craft itself was what solidified his spot on Eastwood's list. Known for his Shakespearean work and classical training, Burton periodically made disparaging remarks about action movies in general and his part in Where Eagles Dare, calling it just a paycheck while the crew was around. This approach was unacceptable to Eastwood, who has always taken every role, regardless of genre, very seriously. Years later, Eastwood gave a very true reaction when asked if he had ever worked with Burton. "Wasted talent, talented man." His evaluation of Burton as a performer and a professional was summed up in those 3 words. Jean Seberg, number 4. The 4th place on Eastwood's list goes to Jean Seberg, an actress who starred with Eastwood in the 1968 musical Paint Your Wagon and whose turbulent life ended tragically. Although Seberg is more well known for her famous performance in Jean-Luc Godard's Breathless and the FBI's subsequent prosecution of her political activism, the future filmmaker was deeply impacted negatively by her brief professional encounter with Eastwood. Eastwood's unique effort, Paint Your Wagon, was a high-budget musical that required him to sing on screen. Eastwood was already uneasy about this change from his typical taste-turn roles, and his experience was made more difficult by what he saw as Seberg's unpredictable actions and lack of professionalism on set. Several production sources claim that Seberg was dealing with personal problems that had an impact on her work. She would often be late for rehearsals, seem preoccupied, and have trouble with even the most basic choreography and blocking. The calculating Eastwood found this uncertainty extremely annoying. According to a choreographer who worked on the movie, Clint handled the singing and dancing as though he tackled everything with discipline and drive to get it right. Jean appeared to be in a completely different reality. She would be experiencing an emotional breakdown in her trailer while he would be prepared to work. There could not have been a more pronounced difference in their methods. When their amorous sequences were being filmed, the tension reached a breaking point. Crew members said simple situations needed numerous takes because of Seaborg's emotional instability. Contrary to Eastwood's inclination toward efficiency once more. Furthermore, Eastwood, who feels that the writer's vision should be served, thought it was disruptive and disrespectful when Seaborg occasionally broke character to challenge the script or offer alternatives. One script supervisor recalled a particular scene in which they only had to walk together and engage in a straightforward conversation. Clint was well versed in his lines. Gone repeatedly paused in the middle of scenes to inquire about the motivation of her character. The closest Clint ever got to an outburst was when he simply left after the sixth interruption, returned 10 minutes later, and stated, "Let's just get this done." It was not just Seaborg's first actions that made her a member of Eastwood's list, but also what transpired after production ended and Paint Your Wagon's performance fell short of expectations. Seaborg implied in multiple interviews that Eastwood's clumsy performance and lackluster musical skills had harmed the movie. This public censure went too far for the fiercely private Eastwood. Those close to Eastwood saw that he would shift the topic anytime Paint Your Wagon or Seaborg was brought up, even though he never publicly disparaged her, even after her terrible suicide in 1979. One longtime friend of Eastwood's recalled him saying simply, "Some people aren't cut out for the work. It's not their fault, but it's not something I need to deal with twice." 3. Tommy Lee Jones. The third name on Eastwood's list represents a clash of two equally strong-willed talents. Tommy Lee Jones, who co-starred with Eastwood in the 1993 thriller In the Line of Fire. Despite the film's critical and commercial success, the experience of working with Jones reportedly convinced Eastwood never to repeat the collaboration. On paper, the pairing seemed perfect. Two no-nonsense actors known for intensity and minimalism. In practice, their similar traits created friction rather than harmony. According to multiple sources from the production, the conflict began with what Eastwood perceived as Jones's attempts to dominate scenes and draw focus from other performers. A cardinal sin in Eastwood's collaborative philosophy. Clint believes the best performances come when actors truly listen to each other, explained Wolfgang Peterson, who directed In the Line of Fire. Tommy has tremendous presence and instinctively commands attention. These different approaches created a palpable tension between them, though both were too professional to let it affect the work directly. The tension escalated during scenes where their characters were in conflict. According to crew members, Jones would sometimes continue acting aggressively even after the director called cut, maintaining his character's hostile energy toward Eastwood between takes. For someone like Eastwood, who cleanly separates performance from reality, this method approach felt unnecessarily antagonistic. There was this scene where Tommy's character is dressing down Eastwood's Secret Service agent, recalled a sound technician. After Peterson called cut, Tommy just kept staring Clint down, staying in character. Clint just looked at him for a moment, then turned and walked away. Later, I heard him mutter to his assistant, "Life's too short for that bulls." What cemented Jones's place on Eastwood's list was a disagreement over a key scene's interpretation. Both actors had different ideas about how the confrontation should play out. And while Eastwood deferred to the director's vision, Jones reportedly continued to push for his approach through multiple takes, directly contradicting Eastwood's one-and-done philosophy. After In the Line of Fire wrapped, Eastwood had opportunities to cast Jones in several of his directorial projects, including roles that seemed perfectly suited to Jones's intensity and range. Each time, according to casting directors who've worked with Eastwood, he would simply shake his head and say, "Let's look at other options." When asked years later about potentially working with Jones again, either as a co-star or directing him, Eastwood's response was characteristically succinct. "Tommy's got his way of working. I've got mine. Sometimes different approaches should stay different." The diplomatic phrasing didn't disguise the finality of his decision. 2. Leonardo DiCaprio. The second spot on Eastwood's list belongs to an actor who has earned universal acclaim for his commitment and intensity, Leonardo DiCaprio, who starred in Eastwood's 2011 biopic, J. Edgar. Despite DiCaprio's reputation as one of his generation's finest actors, the experience of directing him reportedly tested Eastwood's patience to its limits and convinced him never to repeat the collaboration. The central conflict stemmed from their fundamentally different approaches to filmmaking. Eastwood's directing style is famously efficient. Minimal takes, quiet direction, and an emphasis on spontaneity. DiCaprio, meanwhile, has built his career on exhaustive preparation and multiple takes to explore different facets of his characters. It was like watching two different languages trying to communicate, revealed a script supervisor who worked on J. Edgar. Leo wanted to discuss motivation, psychology, historical context. He had books of research and questions about every scene. Clint just wanted him to say the lines naturally and move on. Neither was wrong, but they were completely incompatible. The tension became apparent during the filming of the more emotionally demanding scenes. According to multiple sources, DiCaprio would request additional takes to try different approaches or emotional notes. A standard practice for many actors, but antithetical to Eastwood's best thought philosophy. There was this pivotal emotional breakdown scene, recalled a camera operator. Leo did it brilliantly on the first take. Absolutely nailed it. Then he asked for another and another. By the sixth take, Clint had walked away from the monitor and was just standing at the craft service table drinking coffee and waiting for it to be over. You could feel his irritation growing with each one more. What pushed DiCaprio high on Eastwood's list wasn't just the methodical approach, but what Eastwood perceived as a lack of trust in the director's judgment. For a filmmaker who has always emphasized trusting actors' instincts and capturing authentic moments, DiCaprio's apparent need for multiple safety nets felt like a rejection of Eastwood's entire directorial philosophy. Clint believes the first take has a magic that gets lost in repetition, explained a longtime assistant director who's worked on multiple Eastwood films. When an actor keeps asking for more takes, Clint interprets that as "I don't trust that you got what you needed." For someone who's been directing masterfully for decades, that's hard to swallow. Despite the tension, both men maintained professional respect throughout the production. DiCaprio delivered a committed performance that many critics praised as one of the film's strengths. Eastwood, for his part, never overtly criticized DiCaprio's methods during filming. But when J. Edgar wrapped, sources close to Eastwood reported that he was exhausted in a way they'd never seen before. "I'll never forget what he said after the final day," recalled a producer associated with the film. "He just sighed and said, 'Some people want to climb the mountain, others want to analyze the mountain, measure the mountain, and write poems about the mountain. I just want to get to the top and enjoy the view.'" It was clear he was talking about Leo's approach versus his own. When Eastwood began casting his subsequent films, DiCaprio's name was notably absent from consideration, even for roles that would have suited him perfectly. According to casting directors who've worked with Eastwood, he would simply say, "Great actor, not for me." That polite dismissal effectively closed the door on any future collaboration. 1. Barbara Streisand. The number one spot on Clint Eastwood's list, the person who earned his most intense dislike, belongs to someone he never actually directed or co-starred with, Barbara Streisand. This might seem surprising given their lack of direct collaboration, but industry insiders reveal that their decades-long feud represents the purest distillation of Eastwood's professional values coming into conflict with another filmmaker's approach. The animosity between Eastwood and Streisand dates back to the early 1980s when both were establishing themselves as actor-directors with distinct styles and visions. According to multiple sources, Eastwood's dislike crystallized around what he perceived as Streisand's excessive perfectionism and controlling approach to film qualities directly opposed to his own efficiency and trust in spontaneity. Clint would finish entire films in the time it took Barbara to shoot a single scene, said a producer who worked with both directors, though never together. He heard stories about her doing 50 takes of a simple walking shot or spending days obsessing over the perfect camera angle. To someone who prides himself on making decisions quickly and moving on, that approach isn't just different, it's offensive. The tension became public knowledge during the 1992 awards season when Eastwood's Unforgiven and Streisand's unreleased film, The Prince of Tides, were both in contention. Streisand had been overlooked for a Best Director nomination despite the film receiving multiple other nominations, leading to discussions about gender bias in the industry. While many supported Strerian's position, Eastwood reportedly made private comments suggesting that her directorial style, not her gender, was the real issue. According to those who heard these remarks, Eastwood said something to the effect of, maybe if she spent more time making decisions and less time obsessing over details, she'd have finished more than 3 films in 15 years. This philosophical disagreement escalated into mutual antipathy when Strand allegedly responded by questioning the depth of Eastwood's work, suggesting that his efficiency came at the cost of emotional resonance. For a filmmaker who believes that overthinking kills authenticity, a core principle of Eastwood's directorial approach, this criticism struck at the heart of his artistic values. It became this perfect Hollywood rivalry, explained a veteran publicist familiar with both camps. Clint saw Barbara as everything wrong with directing, indulgent, controlling, paralyzed by perfectionism. Barbara saw Clint as sacrificing depth for speed. Neither was entirely right or wrong, but their approaches were so fundamentally opposed that mutual respect became impossible. The feud reached its peak during the production of The Bridges of Madison County in 1995. Strerian had previously been attached to direct and potentially star in the adaptation of the best-selling novel, but ultimately passed. When Eastwood took over both directing and starring duties, he reportedly made significant changes to the script and approach, effectively repudiating Strerian's vision for the project. Clint streamlined everything, revealed a screenwriter who worked on the film. Where Barbara's version had been expansive and detailed, full of backstory and additional characters, Clint stripped it down to the essential love story. It was as if he was deliberately proving that his approach could achieve more emotional impact with less fuss. The film's critical and commercial success, including an Oscar nomination for Maelstrom, was viewed by many as a vindication of Eastwood's minimalist philosophy over Strerian's more elaborate approach. According to those close to him, Eastwood took particular satisfaction in this outcome, seeing it as proof that his efficiency didn't come at the expense of emotional depth. In the decades since, the two filmmakers have maintained a cool distance, with Eastwood occasionally making subtle digs at Strerian's perfectionism in interviews. When asked about directors who require dozens of takes, Eastwood once remarked, "At a certain point, you're not finding truth anymore. You're simply making things up. The first time, I would rather catch lightning in a bottle." Eastwood values Strerian more than their divergent strategies, which is why this rivalry is at the top of his list. A denial of the fundamental principles that have characterized his directing career: effectiveness, promptness, and faith in the moment. Clint can work with individuals he doesn't particularly like if they share his work ethic, as one long-standing partner put it. Someone who transforms filmmaking into what he views as self-indulgent overthinking is what he cannot stand. The intriguing thing about Eastwood's hate list is not simply who is on it, but also what it says about the filmmaker. Morgan Freeman, who has collaborated with Eastwood on several occasions and kept a cordial rapport with him, says the director's strong feelings are a result of his beliefs about the essence of creativity. In a recent interview, Freeman noted that Clint believes in the importance of instinct in the moment. Excessive analysis and multiple takes, in his opinion, are fear disguised as perfectionism. He doesn't only disagree with their approach when someone comes at him from the other side. In his opinion, it is detrimental to the art form itself. This viewpoint contributes to the explanation of why some of Hollywood's most celebrated talents are on Eastwood's list. These are artists whose approach essentially went against his philosophy in efficiency and spontaneity, not performers who produced subpar work. When Eastwood was casting his movies in the 2000s, it became clear how strongly he felt about these performers. Several sources from these films claim that Eastwood specifically told his casting directors to steer clear of performers who were known for their method practices, lengthy preparation, or need for multiple takes, regardless of their skill or fit for the parts. A casting director who worked on a number of Eastwood films disclosed that there was an unspoken rule. No matter how good someone appeared on paper, they weren't even taken into consideration if they had a reputation for being very process-oriented. A less well-known actor who could perform organically in one take is preferable to a star who required 10 takes to reach the desired performance, according to Clint. Eastwood's handling of these professional disputes is noteworthy in part because it strikes a balance between his personal opinions and his professionalism in public. Even when discussing actors he has secretly promised never to work with again, he rarely criticizes them in public, always keeping a courteous tone. His old-fashioned Hollywood principles are reflected in this restraint. His character also differs from more emotionally expressive modern figures in another way. This observation was provided by Meryl Streep, who collaborated with Eastwood on Madison County bridges and had a cordial working relationship with him. Clint fosters a serene, effective environment that, if you believe it, can be incredibly freeing. But you have to take a leap of faith. You must accept that your gut feeling is frequently your best judgment. He doesn't have much tolerance for people who don't operate in that manner. Reconciliation is unattainable because